All right. So, as always, we'll just recap what we have done in the past 9 sessions. And now I'm going to make the recap very telegraphic, so just so that the continuity is maintained. So, in the first chapter, Samadhi Pada, Patanjali uh, defined yoga as Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What this means is that consciousness is pure awareness. It is complete stillness, is complete silence. But we do not experience it as such because our thoughts, emotions, and feelings keep modifying the consciousness, and they are like waves which hide the still bottom of the lake. What the purpose of yoga is to stop these vrittis, stop these modifications uh, of consciousness. All right. And the next thing he says, there are 5 categories of modifications. Just a minute, let's switch off my phone. Yeah. There are 5 categories of modifications. They are right knowledge, Praman, wrong knowledge, Viparyaya, imaginary knowledge, Vikalp, no knowledge, Nidra, and past knowledge, Smriti. There are 5 categories of modifications which modify consciousness. And the method to stop vrittis is abhyasa, which is regular, prolonged practice, and vairagya, which is slowly withdrawing from the senses, from going out towards objects of pleasure and pain. Equanimity between pleasure and pain is vairagya, right? And once the vrittis are reduced, once the consciousness has become more still, then samadhi pragna, ya samapati, or the ability to go into a meditative state fast, develops. And now the sadhaka is ready for dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Samadhi itself, Patanjali said, are of 4 levels. The first level is vitarka, where the thinking process is still on. The second level is the thinking subdues and observation starts, vichar. The third level is that reflection starts. Whatever is the object, it starts reflecting because the mind has become so still that it starts reflecting on the consciousness. It's called Shananda. You get bliss at that time. And finally, absorption in that consciousness, which is asmita. However, at this stage, the seeds of karma are still there, which is causing some kind of a motion. And the final state is nirbij, when those seeds are burnt. That's a, that's a grace. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the grace of the Almighty, right? In Sadhana Pada, that this is where the first chapter ends. In Sadhana Pada, his second chapter, Patanjali addresses the middling yogi. The yogi is not yet ready for samadhi. So he addresses the middling yogi and prescribes Kriya Yoga for such yogis. Kriya Yoga, it comprises 3 things. One is tapa, which is the continued practice of Ashtanga Yoga. And what this does, it reduces the hold of desires and the ego, which are, holding you down into a worldly, uh, catching you in the worldly existence. So the practice of Ashtanga Yoga, regular practice of Ashtanga Yoga reduces the hold. That's tapa. And this brings the mind to peace. The mind is not agitated. Once the mind is brought to peace, the energy released by tapa is used for swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is self-study. What is self-study? In very simple terms, it is watching. The mind is now quietened down because of with tapa, with Ashtanga Yoga. It is capable of simply watching your inner mechanism. I am angry. Watch. I am happy. Watch. I'm sad. Watch. I'm agitated. Watch. So just the watching develops the power of observation, right? And in that watching, the vrittis and your inner mechanisms are revealed. What is below my anger? Why do I feel happy? So though that is revealed simply by watching. It sounds very simple, but to develop the ability to observe and watch requires years of practice of Ashtanga Yoga, right? Now, this by watching, you've quietened the mind, you have developed the ability to watch. The next step is Ishwar Pranidhana, which is in the translation is surrender to Ishwar, but it is nothing but being in touch with your inner awareness. That's quietude inside. By observing, the mind becomes so quiet that you are just observing that quietude. That quietude is nothing but the Ishwar Tattva inside you. All right. So that is the prescription. Kriya Yoga is a prescription for middling yogis. From here, they can go into the Samadhi. Now, after that, Patanjali goes into what are the root causes of human suffering. And he said the Panchaklesha, the 5 categories of human affliction, are the root cause of suffering. And the chief cause is avidya. And avidya has these things. One is that there's a lack of awareness of what is real and what is not real. So a person who considers the world and nature as real is in delusion. He does not consider Brahman or the pure consciousness as real. So this vivek, this discrimination between real and unreal is not there, which is avidya. Secondly is what is pure and impure, that distinction is not there. What is pleasurable and painful, that distinction is not there. And what is Atman and what is Anatman is not there. Basically, avidya is mistaking the world to be real and saying Brahman is not. That is avidya. And avidya, because of avidya, we are disconnected from our true nature, which is pure consciousness, Satchit Ananda, the pure existence, pure bliss, and pure knowledge. We are disconnected from that, and therefore we get attached to our mind body. And once we get attached to our mind body, then this I sense develops. I am Atul Sinha, right? This is Asmita, ego identification. Once the ego identification is there, the mind body identification is there, then all you can do is seek pleasure. Why are you seeking pleasure? Because your intrinsic nature is bliss, but you've got disconnected. So you're seeking pleasure from things in the world, right? So the next, the klesha, the first klesha is avidya, next is asmita. The third klesha is raga and dvesha, 3 and 4. Raga is to hanker after things which are pleasurable, and dvesha is to avoid things which are painful, right? This is a natural thing because you have identified with your body and mind, and you're disconnected from your source, right? And finally, because you have identified the body and mind, the 5th klesha is abhinivesha, which is you cling to life. You don't want to die, right? So these are the 5 kleshas: avidya, leading to asmita, leading to raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. And this is at the root of human suffering. Your intrinsic nature is, there's no suffering in the intrinsic nature. You're Satchitananda. But because you've got disconnected and these kleshas have developed, you suffer, right? And the way to get out of this is what he called prasava. which means you go backward. You first deal with Abhinivesha. Once you deal with Abhinivesha, Raga Dvesha will automatically drop. Once Raga Dvesha drops, your Asmita will drop. And once Asmita drops, Avidya will drop. And then you will realize that you are Satchitananda. Okay. So in today's talk, we will cover the link between Klesha and Karma. As always, I will share my screen to show you the shlokas which we'll cover today. Just a minute. Yeah. All right, here we go. So the first one second. The first shloka we'll cover is Klesha Mula Karmashyo Drishta Adrishta Janmave Danya. What this is saying is that some karmashaya, which is every time we act, there is a impression of that action which is imprinted on a psyche. It's called samskaras or karmashaya. And this is based on kleshas. And then they become manifest in our present life and in our future life. So this basically saying kleshas give you your karmas, right? And as long as kleshas remain, the consequence of klesha remains at the root. The consequence of that is birth. You will be reborn, ayu, your lifespan, and experience, whatever experience you have in life. So this is your karma, right? And depending on punya and apunya, birth, span of life, the quality of birth, quality of span, the extent of life, and the quality experience will show up as fruits. If you have punya, then you will have pleasurable fruits. If you have apunya, then you will have painful fruits, right? But for the discerning people who have vivek, everything is painful. So this distinction we have, this is pleasurable and this is painful. The discerning yogi has seen through this. Even what is painful in the beginning will be dukh in the end. All right? And somebody, hello, Vinay Pandey, please mute yourself. And this results from your actions, from your experience, and from your samskaras, and also from your gunas. I'll explain all this. So the present karma you can do nothing about, you have to live through it, but future karmas can be avoided. So this is what we will cover today. All right. Stop sharing screen. And here we go. All right. So the first one we saw was karmas are at the root cause of afflictions, and the karma has to be experienced in the present life and in future births. So let us try to understand karma very, very simply, and then I'll bring the Shastra in. It is impossible for us to live in the present moment. And why do I say this? Because all of us live from our mind. All of us live from our thoughts. Okay? And the mind cannot think afresh. The mind will only think of the thoughts which are stored in the mind. And those thoughts which are stored in the mind come from our past experiences. All right? So in the present moment, whenever you see something, whenever you hear something, the mind is projecting its past conditioning and its past knowledge about that thing. So it is impossible for us to live in the present moment. Impossible. I mean, impossible in a current state of consciousness. We can live in the present, but that requires a higher level of consciousness. All right. So, the past is, it keeps projecting the past, which then becomes our future. How do we know this? You can notice, you look into your life, you'll find a pattern that given a certain kind of situation, you always react like that. Okay. So carrying the past, you're carrying your past into the future. And that is the basis of karma. Always living from the past is karma. Okay. Now, what happens is that once you have a karma, then that karma leads to a certain desire. Once there is a desire, that desire has to move into action, because there's nothing, no way out. You have to fulfill that. You have to work to fulfill that desire. Once you act, and the desire is either fulfilled or not fulfilled, whatever it is, once you act, there is a impression which is drilled into your psyche, a groove in your psyche, right? This is what is called samskar. And this is drilled into your subtle body. So that is why you have rebirth, because it's not in your physical body. So even if your physical body drops, your subtle body remains, and you take rebirth because of those samskars. You have to fulfill those samskars. So you have to take rebirth. Okay. And once you take rebirth, the cycle of desire, action, impression, desire, action, impression, desire, action, impression, desire, action, impression just goes on and on and on and on. And that's the law, right? However, if you were to live out of the present, which is the whole purpose of yoga, if you were to live out of the present, living out of the present is a yogic experience where time is transcended, where time is paused. In a meditative state, you are as if absolutely still, no time is happening. It's an experience of no time. That is living in the present moment. Once you live in the present moment, you're living one moment to the next moment to the next moment, and no future is getting created. You're letting your karmas kind of flow through. And once the karmas have flowed through, no rebirth for you. The second thing is, so this is very simple. This is karma. Karma happens because our mind does not know how to live in the present. It lives in the past. It keeps projecting the past onto every experience and projects the past into the future, and the past repeats itself. And how do we know this? Because of the patterns in our own life. If you, in a quiet moment, you think, you play back the reel of your life, you will see patterns. You'll see your own patterns. The patterns in our own life will confirm to you that it's the past which is reliving into the future. And that is karma. And then the samskara and all, the subtle body, etc., will explain rebirth. Why those things keeps carrying on to life after life after life after life, right? But if you develop that yogic experience of living in the present, means time is paused, you have transcended time, there is no time in that. And then you're living in absolutely the present moment. And there's no continuity with the past in them. How are karmas created? Kleshas. Kleshas are the ones which create karma. Kleshas, as we saw, are avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinevesh. As long as the kleshas are there will be desires and experience. Now, why is that? Very simple. Our true nature in transcendence, our true nature when we live in that present moment through the practice of yoga, we reach that stage in the present moment is continuous, uninterrupted, inward flowing bliss, ananda. All right. But since we have got disconnected, but we have a instinct to experience that ananda, we look for ananda in worldly things. All right. So this avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, these kleshas will, as long as they exist, we will have desire to look for happiness,